Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
I can't believe this whole mess started with a simple review I left online. Who knew it would turn into such a wild ride, but let me tell you, I thought it was worth every second. So there I was, living in my condo, minding my own business, when I noticed some issues with the exterior of our building. The tuckpointing needed work, and it had been going on for way too long. I mean, we're talking years here. My neighbor's unit was even leaking, can you imagine? I decided to take matters into my own hands and started calling around. That's when I found out the management company had been feeding us a line about needing to shut off the electrical grid to do the work. Turns out that was total nonsense. ComEd told me they just used some special sleeves to cover the wires, and boom, problem solved. No need for any dramatic power outages. Well, you can bet I was pretty ticked off. I mean, these guys had been giving us the runaround for 2 whole years. So I did what any frustrated homeowner would do in the age of the internet. I left some honest reviews online. Google, BBB, Facebook, you name it, I posted there. I didn't hold back either. I called them out for being rude, unresponsive, and for spinning tall tales about grid shutoffs. Next thing I know, I'm getting this threatening email from the HOA and management company. They're all huffy, demanding I take down my reviews or face legal action for slander. Can you believe the nerve? I'm sitting there thinking, slander for telling the truth? Give me a break, I'll admit. I was a bit worried at first. I'm no legal expert, and the thought of being sued was pretty scary. But then I remembered something my dad always used to say, the truth will set you free. So I decided to stand my ground. I started doing some research online and talking to friends who knew a thing or two about the law. Turns out, truth is a rock-solid defense against defamation claims. As long as what I said in those reviews was factual, I had nothing to worry about. And boy, did I have the facts on my side. I gathered all my evidence, emails, phone records, even that conversation with ComEd. I put together a timeline of events showing how long this had been going on and how many times we'd been given the runaround. It was like I was building my own little legal case. Then I decided to go on the offensive. I wrote back to the HOA and management company, telling them in no uncertain terms that I wasn't backing down. I laid out all the facts, pointed out that everything in my reviews was true, and suggested that maybe they should be more concerned about fixing the building than trying to silence homeowners. But I didn't stop there. Oh no, I was on a roll now. I started talking to my neighbors, sharing what I'd learned. Turns out, a lot of them had similar frustrations but were too afraid to speak up. We started having meetings, comparing notes, and before long we had ourselves a little homeowners' rebellion on our hands. We decided to attend the next HOA meeting en masse. You should have seen the looks on their faces when we all showed up. We presented our case calmly and professionally, but we made it clear we weren't going to be pushed around anymore. To their credit, the HOA board seemed pretty shocked when they realized just how badly the management company had dropped the ball. They hadn't known half of what was going on. Suddenly, the tide started to turn in our favor. Long story short, within a month, we had a new management company. The tuckpointing work, it got done in record time. No grid shutoffs required, just like I'd said all along. My neighbor's leak, fixed, and those threatening emails about legal action, they mysteriously disappeared, never to be mentioned again. But here's where things took a turn. Instead of a happy ending, we found ourselves in a different kind of mess. The new management company came in with a bang, promising to fix everything. But as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that their promises were just that, promises. They were slow to respond to maintenance requests, and the quality of work was subpar. The tuckpointing looked good at first, but soon we noticed cracks reappearing. I remember one evening sitting in my living room, scrolling through the group chat with my neighbors. We were all sharing our frustrations about the new management. Has anyone heard back about the plumbing issue? One neighbor asked. I called 3 times, and no one has returned my call, another replied. It was disheartening. We had fought so hard for change, and now it felt like we were back at square one. I decided to take action again. I organized another meeting, this time to discuss our growing concerns about the new management company. We gathered in the community room, and the mood was tense. Everyone was worried that we had traded one set of problems for another. I stood up and shared my thoughts, urging everyone to document their issues and hold the management accountable. But it didn't take long for the new management to catch wind of our dissatisfaction. One day, I received an email from them, stating that they had noticed a decline in the community's morale and were concerned about the negative feedback circulating among the residents. They invited us to a community engagement meeting, which sounded promising at first. However, when we attended that meeting, it quickly became clear that they were more interested in placating us than actually addressing our concerns. The manager spoke in vague terms, throwing around buzzwords like transparency and collaboration. But when it came to specifics, he was evasive. I could see the frustration on my neighbors' faces as we tried to pin him down on timelines for repairs and accountability for the shoddy work. After that meeting, I felt deflated. It was like we had fought so hard for change, only to be met with more empty promises. I tried to rally the troops again, but the energy was different this time. People were tired. They had invested so much time and effort into this fight, and now they were facing yet another uphill battle. As the weeks went by, I started to notice a shift in the community. People who had once been so engaged began to withdraw. The group chats became quieter, and attendance at meetings dwindled. I felt a sense of loss as I watched the camaraderie we had built start to fade away. It was disheartening to see how quickly our unity had crumbled under the weight of disappointment. I continued to document issues and communicate with my neighbors, but it felt like I was shouting into a void. The management company seemed to have no real interest in improving things, and I was left wondering if we would ever find a solution. I even considered reaching out to the media, thinking that maybe a little public exposure would force them to take action, but I hesitated, unsure if it would make things worse. One day, I received another email from the management company, this time informing us of a new initiative they were launching to improve communication with residents. They were going to create a monthly newsletter and hold office hours for residents to drop in and voice their concerns. I rolled my eyes. It felt like a band-aid on a much larger problem. I couldn't help but wonder if they were just trying to buy time while they figured out how to deal with our complaints. Despite my skepticism, I decided to give it a shot. I attended the first office hours, hoping to finally get some answers. But when I arrived, I was met with a half-hearted setup, a folding table with a couple of chairs, and a manager who seemed more interested in scrolling through his phone than listening to residents. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me as I realized that nothing had really changed. As the months dragged on, I found myself questioning whether it was worth it to keep fighting. I had poured so much energy into this cause, but the results were disheartening. I started to feel isolated again, like I was back in that place where I had first begun, frustrated and alone in my concerns. Eventually, I decided to take a step back. I stopped attending meetings and focused on my own life. I still kept in touch with a few neighbors, but the sense of community we had built was fading. I felt like I had let everyone down, like I had failed in my mission to bring about real change. Looking back, I can see how the whole experience changed me. I had gone from being a frustrated homeowner to someone who was willing to stand up for what was right. But in the end, it felt like the fight had drained me. I had learned a lot about resilience and the importance of community, but I also learned that sometimes, even when you fight hard, things don't always turn out the way you hope. If there's one lesson I took away from this whole ordeal, it's that change is hard, and it often comes with setbacks. I still believe in the power of community and the importance of speaking up, but I also understand that not every battle ends in victory. Sometimes you just have to keep pushing forward, even if the outcome isn't what you envisioned. Sometimes you may just find that in the end nothing really changes, and the only real change is the players. HOA and the management companies seem to only be out for themselves. I can't believe how self-righteous the narrator sounds throughout this whole ordeal. Sure, it's great to stand up for your rights, but the way they went about it was just over the top, leaving scathing reviews online and then acting shocked when the management company pushed back. It's like they wanted a fight. And let's be real, the ending is a total letdown. Instead of a triumphant community coming together, we get a bunch of disgruntled homeowners who can't even keep their motivation up. It's a classic case of, be careful what you wish for. If you're going to rally the troops, at least have a solid plan instead of whining about how things didn't turn out as expected. Not a lawyer, but had a computer repair shop threaten me once for leaving a bad review. He even hired a private investigator to find out who wrote the review, then tracked me down and kept mailing threatening letters to me. I spoke with my brother, who does happen to be a lawyer, and he laughed and told me to ignore it. First of all, the fact that they call it slander and not libel tells me they haven't really done their research, and certainly haven't spoken to an attorney about their case. Libel is written. Slander is spoken. In order for a slander libel lawsuit to be successful, they have to prove that you knowingly lied, and they suffered damages as a result. If what you said is true, then you have nothing to worry about. If they have been rude, unresponsive, and stalling, and the fact that it's taken 2 years would suggest that yes, it is reasonable to say they are stalling, then you haven't written anything libelous. There were no anti-SLAPP laws at the time this happened to me, so I simply told him that I did not say anything that wasn't true. I have every right to leave a review, and I would not be removing it. And at the advice of my own attorney, if he did not stop contacting me, threatening me, I would go to the police and file a formal harassment report. Never heard from him again. I would not even respond. They aren't going to sue you because it would be an expensive road to nowhere. Edit. I saw your reviews on another post, and there are definitely a couple of lines I would remove. Straight up calling someone a crook and an extortionist is indeed defamatory. I used to work as a journalist and had to know 1A and defamation law inside and out. ComEd Services Northern Illinois, so this should be fun. Illinois has the Citizens Participation Act, an anti-SLAPP strategic lawsuit against public participation law on the books. Stand your ground. If you're sued, hire an attorney and file the appropriate motion. The plaintiff must then prove to the court they aren't wasting the court's time with a frivolous suit. Win your motion, and the plaintiff will owe you attorney's fees and court costs. If the case somehow moves past that stage and to an actual trial, there are a few things to know. First, opinion is federally protected speech and not defamation. Second, the truth is absolutely a defense against defamation. Your reviews constitute an opinion, and it was an informed one. You can obtain statements from multiple people, both other residents and ComEd, stating to the effect the plaintiff had been jerking people around for years. That's a pretty strong position to be arguing from. My wife and I just bought our first house, and we were super excited to put up a nice fence around the backyard. We figured it'd be great for privacy and to let our dog run around without worrying. So we hired this fence company that seemed pretty legit. They told us not to worry about a thing. They'd handle all the HOA stuff and make sure everything was kosher. Now, I'll admit I was probably a bit naive here. I mean, these guys are professionals, right? They do this all the time. So when they asked for our HOA guidelines and said they'd take care of all the paperwork, I just handed it over and trusted them to do their job. Big mistake. So here's the deal with our HOA rules. We're allowed to have a 6-foot privacy fence, but only up to where our pool cage ends. After that, it has to drop down to a 4-foot picket fence through this easement area in the back of the yard. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, the fence company submits their plans to the HOA, and wouldn't you know it, they get approved. I'm thinking, great, let's get this fence built, but here's where it all went sideways. The fence company submitted 2 different drawings to the HOA. First, they took this land survey I had done before we bought the place and drew the fence line on it. On that drawing, the fence stopped short of the easement, just like it's supposed to. But then they also submitted this hand-drawn contract with measurements that showed the 6-foot privacy fence going all the way to the back of the property, right through the easement where it's not allowed. Now, I didn't catch this discrepancy. I mean, who reads all that paperwork closely, right? I figured if the HOA approved it, we must be good to go. But nope, the fence company went ahead and built it according to their hand-drawn contract, not the survey that actually followed the rules. So now I've got this fence that's in violation of the HOA rules, even though the HOA approved the paperwork. It's like some kind of bureaucratic nightmare. The HOA's coming after me because the fence is wrong, but the fence company is saying they built it according to the approved plans. I'm stuck in the middle here, and I'm not sure what to do. I mean, I get why the HOA is upset. The fence really is against their rules, but at the same time they approved the plans. And the fence company, they're the ones who messed up. They said they'd handle all this HOA stuff, but they didn't do it right. I've been going back and forth with the fence company, trying to get them to fix this mess. But they're not budging. They keep pointing to that hand-drawn contract and saying that's what I agreed to. But come on, I'm not a fence expert or an HOA expert. I trusted them to know what they were doing. The worst part is, I'm not even sure I have any legal ground to stand on here. The fence contract doesn't actually say anything about them being responsible for dealing with the HOA, it just lists the measurements and the price. So even though they told me verbally they'd handle it all, I don't have anything in writing. I'm starting to think this might just be one of those expensive lessons you have to learn as a new homeowner. You know, trust but verify and all that. Get everything in writing. Don't assume the professionals always know what they're doing. It's frustrating because this was supposed to be a simple project. Just put up a nice fence, make the yard look good, give us some privacy. Instead, I'm dealing with angry HOA letters, a stubborn fence company, and the possibility that I might have to pay to have this whole thing redone. I've been losing sleep over this, trying to figure out what to do. Do I just bite the bullet and pay to have the fence fixed myself? Do I keep fighting with the fence company and hope they'll eventually take responsibility? Or do I try to appeal to the HOA and see if they'll make an exception since they approved the plans in the first place? I've even thought about talking to a lawyer, but I'm not sure if it's worth the cost. I mean, how much would I end up spending in legal fees compared to just fixing the fence? The whole thing has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how complicated something like putting up a fence could be. Between property lines, easements, HOA rules, and contractors, there's just so much that can go wrong. I've been talking to some of my new neighbors about it, and it turns out I'm not the only one who's had issues with contractors and the HOA. Seems like it's a pretty common problem around here. At least I'm not alone, I guess. For now, I'm still trying to figure out my next move. I've got a meeting with the HOA board next week to plead my case. I'm hoping maybe if I explain the whole situation, they'll be understanding. Maybe they'll give me some extra time to get it fixed or something. As for the fence company, I'm thinking about leaving them some pretty negative reviews online. I know it won't fix my fence, but at least it might warn other homeowners not to make the same mistake I did. Looking back, I wish I'd paid more attention to the details. I wish I'd double-checked everything myself instead of just trusting the fence company. But I guess that's how you learn, right? Next time I need any work done on the house, you can bet I'll be reading every single word of every contract and plan. For now, I'm just hoping I can find a way to resolve this without it costing me an arm and a leg. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to enjoy my backyard someday without worrying about HOA violations. That fence company really screwed you over. They had one job, to handle the HOA paperwork correctly, and they couldn't even do that. It's ridiculous that they submitted two different drawings, one that followed the rules and one that didn't. And then they have the nerve to build the fence according to the wrong one. That's some shady business right there. I'd be furious if I were you. These contractors think they can just take advantage of homeowners who don't know all the ins and outs of HOA regulations. It's a total scam. And don't even get me started on the HOA. How did they approve conflicting documents in the first place? They're supposed to be reviewing this stuff carefully. Sounds like they're just as incompetent as the fence company. You're stuck in the middle of this mess, and it's not fair. I hope you find a way to make the fence company fix their mistake without it costing you a fortune. This is why you never trust contractors to handle HOA stuff. They don't care about the rules, they just want to get paid. The fence company clearly knew what they were doing when they submitted those conflicting drawings. They probably figured they could get away with building the bigger fence and make more money. It's sleazy and dishonest. The HOA isn't much better, approving plans without actually checking if they match up. Homeowners always end up paying the price for everyone else's incompetence. And this whole situation is a train wreck. The fence company is obviously the biggest villain here. They straight up lied to you about handling the HOA stuff properly. Submitting two different drawings is sketchy as hell. They knew exactly what they were doing, trying to build a bigger fence than allowed so they could charge more. It's a classic bait and switch, but let's not let the HOA off the hook either. What kind of half-assed approval process do they have that lets conflicting documents slip through? They're supposed to be protecting homeowners from exactly this kind of thing. Instead, they rubber-stamped it without even noticing the discrepancy. Now they're coming after you for their own mistake? That's some serious bullshit. You're definitely getting screwed from both sides here. The fence company won't take responsibility, and the HOA is breathing down your neck. It sucks that you might end up having to pay to fix this mess that you didn't even create. This is the kind of thing that makes people hate HOAs and distrust contractors. Good luck dealing with this nightmare. You're gonna need it.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.